It had to be a competency-based program so that students didn't have to spend more time on something than they needed to. It needed to be driven by technology so that it could be made available to them where they were when they needed it. And it needed to be affordable. Graded assignments are not the path to completing a course for us. As I said, competency-based education was one of the initial criteria when the governors established Western Governors.
Welcome to this new episode of Edly Academy Spotlights. I'm very pleased to be here with Mike Hassett from Western Governors University, WGU. We are at the Open edX Conference in Paris 2025. It's the end of the heat wave. We had a lot of fun. Everybody's exhausted. I think we can agree it was a great conference.
It has been a great conference, and I'm glad the heat wave is over.
So I'm really happy to have you here, Mike, today. Let me introduce you first. So you are Director of Programming Experiences and Experience Solutions at WGU. And I'm Régis Bémot, VP of Engineering at Edly. Edly is a global provider of edtech solutions and software. I would like to talk about Western Governors University, so WGU. And your focus on education, edtech. I've worked with WGU for now a few years, but many people might not know about it. Can you describe what is the vision of WGU?
Sure. So WGU started almost exactly 30 years ago. It was started by a group of Western governors who felt like they had large populations who did not have access to traditional higher education. Because they could not afford to relocate for 4 years to get a bachelor's degree. So they set about to provide an education that would be equal to anything they could get at a 4-year institution, but that could be delivered to them where they needed to be for work, for family, for cost reasons. As part of that, they had kind of 3 criteria that were important to them. One was it had to be a competency-based program, so that students didn't have to spend more time on something than they needed to. It needed to be driven by technology so that it could be made available to them where they were when they needed it. And it needed to be affordable. And so it needed to be a viable product that for which the cost could be kept as low as possible. Those were their criteria. And that's been essentially the mission for 30 years now. And we've been entirely online the whole time. We offer, right now we have nearly 200,000 active students. By next year at this time, we should have graduated our 500,000th student, which in 30 years is really phenomenal. So, we're all quite happy with how things have gone.
And WGU is a non-profit, right?
That's correct.
It's a set of quite unique criteria. I mean,
yes.
Competency-based learning, technology-driven, unlike traditional higher ed, and affordable. Again, in the US, that's
very unusual.
Yeah. So we might have more of that in traditional higher ed system here in Europe. But I understand that in the US, it's quite new. And so this has existed for a long time now. It predated Open edX and the MOOC revolution by far, by 10 years at least. And it's only recently that you've joined the Open edX ecosystem, and you made really a big splash by coming in.
So I joined WGU just over 5 years ago. And one of my responsibilities was to help us find a new course authoring platform. And it needed to meet a lot of requirements. Our systems are very different from the way most organizations use course authoring and delivery software. We don't, for instance, use Open edX as our LMS. Our LMS is what I call a distributed LMS. It takes about 12 different systems to do what is traditionally done in a single LMS. But for us, it gives us a lot more flexibility in how we author and deliver learning and assessments. So we needed a tool that would allow us to author and deliver effectively, efficiently, and at a price point that was sustainable and that would help us keep tuition low. Open edX met all of those requirements because, one, it's open source, so it's free. Two, it's designed to be extensible and flexible and customizable. And three, it's generally easy to train people up on how to use it. And so it really seemed like it would be the right kind of tool for us. We implemented it. We launched our first courses in it about 6 months later. And now we have several hundred courses in it. We've had more than 300 people author in it. And it has become a central piece of our educational technology stack. And when we got our new provost and chief academic officer, Courtney Hills Macbeth, she looked at all of that and decided that we probably needed to be more involved in the community. And so starting several months ago, we started having meetings between Axum Collaborative and our leadership, and they arranged this partnership where we're now providing 8 engineering resources dedicated to core Open edX development. We work closely with the Axum Collaborative product managers to identify use cases, user stories, to review and test capabilities. And, we feel like we're now a strong partner in shaping the future of Open edX.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these dedicated, these people working full-time on Open edX is what also granted you access to the technical oversight committee of Open edX, granting you a seat at the TOC.
Correct.
And so you were the first, there's this new status in the TOC, I think it's called privileged partner or something like that.
I'm not sure what it's called.
Well, so anyway, you were the first of its kind in the TOC. And now we have a second one, but WGU really,
We try always to be the first.
So you certainly were in that regard. And I think it's great because it allows us to widen the circle of people who are making decisions about Open edX. And I think the more the merrier in this small circle of people.
Well, and we really do represent a different use case. As I said, we don't use it as an LMS. Because we're competency-based, we don't focus on things like the gradebook feature, because graded assignments are not the path to completing a course for us, because graded assignments are activities that are more driven by traditional models of education where you get points and, add those up. And, if you get enough of those points, then you get the grade. And that's not the way competency-based education works. The courses that we provide are to help students who need assistance in preparing for competency validation. And ultimately, it's the assessment system that really determines whether the student has succeeded or not in the course. So we're a little bit different that way. Our work at scale, as I said, we've had over 300 individuals authoring in the system. Any one course might have 30 people work on it. So all of that means that we have needs, we have requirements, we have experiences that are different from the traditional Open edX user. And part of our desire to be involved in these conversations and the road mapping and future state is to help it deliver even better for our needs.
So the engineer in me wants to understand how Open edX connects to all the rest of your stack, but that's maybe not the right time to focus on this. And this is really fascinating, this competency-based learning and how it differs from other institutions. Can you explain what that means in layman terms?
Yeah. So, as I said, competency-based education was one of the initial criteria when the governors established Western Governors University.
Yeah, can you explain what that is? Because not everybody might be familiar with that.
And what they were after was they did not want the requirement to be that you spend a certain amount of time, seat time, we now call it, but a certain amount of time in a class in order to get credit for that class. What they wanted was an opportunity for you to demonstrate what you know. If you don't know enough yet, to get access to some learning that will help you know enough. And then as soon as you have reached that point where you can demonstrate in a credible way that you have that competency, then you should be allowed to move on. And so for us, competency-based education means that if you come in with a lot of experience, a lot of background, maybe you've had some college education, maybe not, maybe you've just worked in the field for a long time and you now need that credential to help you move up, in your company. But you already have all of the skills and the competency. You should be able to move through that program as quickly as you can demonstrate that you have that. And that's what competency-based education is really focused on. And so we have students who, come through and if they are well-versed in the content of a course and they have already developed competency, it might take them a week or two to finish that course. Others might need more help, and so it might take them a month or maybe even a little longer. But that's up to them to decide. And when they feel they're ready to validate their competency, they can take the assessment. And if they pass, they're done with that course and they can move on.
So this is an idea that is both very simple and very revolutionary. Maybe all revolutionary ideas are simple. The idea to focus on the competency and not on the degree. And once you start from there are many consequences down the road in the curriculum and like designing the curriculum, assessing students, and even after that. So, and you broached the topic of assessments. Can you tell us what that means in practice? So you were saying that assignments and grade books don't matter that much. Graded assignments you don't care really much about that. So how do you evaluate the students, and how do you evaluate them in a way that is relevant?
Yeah, and I probably should be careful about how I say graded assignments don't matter.
No,
but they matter differently.
Yeah, because you have grades.
We grade some assignments. Yeah. We don't grade all assignments.
Mm-hmm.
Some activities that students do are formative and allow them to self-assess how they're doing with the competency.
Can you just explain maybe what a formative assessment is? Because that's super important.
Yeah, so formative assessments are those that are designed to help you continue to learn rather than so much demonstrate what you already have learned.
And not eliminate you because you didn't pass the grade.
Yeah. And so we use formative activities as a self-indicator, but also a place where instructors can see whether a student might be struggling with a particular content area. And if they are, then they can intervene in that and help the student get over that hump and continue moving forward toward building up the competency. So those formative activities are very important, but they don't get calculated into whether the student passes the class or not. That's the big difference. So from the standpoint of I was a traditional university professor for 4 years. We had a lot of assignments that students had to do them, and at the end of the semester or term or whatever you had, you would add those up, and they represented a percentage of the overall final grade, which meant that if you didn't do those and you didn't do well enough on the final assessment, the final exam, then you wouldn't pass. That's not true of our formative assessments or formative activities. Our students can if they're already competent, they can bypass those because they don't need that learning that comes from those activities. They can go straight to the actual validation assessment. When I was a university professor, those assignments were in many ways the way we tried to keep people engaged and keep them coming to class, is so they could turn those in and get the points, because we had to keep them there in class because that was part of the requirement. And with competency-based education, there's no pressure for that.
So is it fair to say that you focus more on formative assessments rather than the graded assessments?
Well, I mean, some of those formative assessments, formative activities are graded so that instructors can look at them, or because we think that seeing a score, seeing a grade helps the student, self-reflect on their competency. But that's all the grades really are, is they're kind of a signpost for people, right? The validation assessment is it's not graded, it is scored. And students have to demonstrate a certain level of proficiency on that validation assessment to pass the course. So that one, the score matters a great deal. The rest of them, the scores where we do score them, are, as I said, they're signposts that help the instructor and the student get some kind of temporary sense of where the student's competency is.
Yeah. And so you keep saying it gives teachers a sense of where a student is. We can detect when students face an issue. But then you mentioned that WGU is all online. That means that the teacher can't see face-to-face whether the students are struggling. And I think that WGU really innovated in that area. So can you explain, how do you do that in practice?
Yeah, so it's very data-driven. One of the great things about being a completely online school is everything is online, which means that the record keeping is built into the method of delivery. So when a student does a formative activity, the instructor doesn't have to go record the grade somewhere. The activity is there online and it's recorded. We can then extract that data and combine it with other information we have about the student, about other students, and then provide recommendations to both the student and the faculty that might indicate to a course instructor, this student is struggling, you need to go intervene and see why they're struggling so much. In some cases, we might even deliver a message to the instructor that says, this student is clearly competent, but they're not taking the assessment. So you should go give them a little nudge and get them to take the assessment, because
that's something that happens. The students doing great, but not taking the assessment.
Some students, their personality, they feel like they have to do everything. And if everything isn't marked off, they don't feel like they've done their job. Some of them might have done everything, but not, even though they might have done well on it, not feel confident that they're ready to be assessed. And so, those are the kinds of students that sometimes need a little bit of help in understanding that, look, you've got it. And because we have all of that data on those students, and we can compare it to data of other students, so that we can actually be saying, students who have performed the way you have on these formative activities basically always pass the assessment. And the instructor can go to the student and help build their confidence because of that. So those are the kinds of things we can do, because we're an online university where everything is digitized. All of it's available to us. When you run 200,000 students through a system a year, you get a lot of data points that you can use for comparison.
So isn't that too much data? I mean, when you collect so much data, how do you know which data to look at? It's so easy to look at the wrong data when you want to to encourage added value for students, you might want to focus on the wrong data. Is a student how many hours is a student staying in this course? Maybe that would be a wrong metric, for instance,
So,
to look
you
at.
know, in a way, you could say that WGU started too early because it has taken till now for the technology to catch up, right? We've had this data and we've been able to do really good things with it in the past. But now, because storage is so much cheaper, because the analytical tools were already so much better than they were 30 years ago. And now we've added AI on top of that. You combine all of that, virtually unlimited storage capability, really solid data analytic and display capability, and AI to help parse all of that data. You're finally at a point where the technology has caught up to the model, to the educational model. And we're now able to do things that we've always wanted to do, and now we can really do them.
But what kind of metric, what kind of KPI are you, in all this ocean of data, it's easy to look at the wrong graph, the wrong bar chart, and unintentionally make mistakes and actually cause harm, because there are real people who depend on the education.
We have a data group that's about 100 people strong.
Wow.
And they are working to ensure that doesn't happen. They're doing the analytics so that we know that this part of a course plays a bigger role in a student's assessment performance than this part of the course. And so a student who's struggling here is much less likely to pass. Whereas a student who succeeds here, who maybe struggled here, is still likely to pass. That's the kind of analysis that we're able to do. And we're doing it every day.
100 people looking at data, that's amazing. That's amazing.
For a higher educational institution, it's probably almost as unusual as our delivery model.
I mean, many things are unusual here, but I mean, it's working out for you guys. So you must be doing something right, I guess.
As I said, I mean, we started with the bold vision, and we've kind of kept at it while the rest of the world has been catching up. And now you have, now there are other universities who maybe didn't start as online, but have really, committed to online education. Every university and college, for a period of time, became an online school during the pandemic. Fortunately, the tools were there for them, and they didn't have to cobble together the first iteration of an online program, and they were able to take advantage of the kind of work that's been done over the 30 years, not just by WGU, but by a lot of institutions and organizations. And so, it's fun to be working for WGU at a time when we have these tools and we can do this kind of work that takes what we did for the very first graduate and just blows that out of the water.
So when you say it's fun to work on that, so you mentioned that you joined 5 years ago, WGU. So if I count correctly, that was smack in the middle of the pandemic.
I joined in November before the pandemic hit.
Okay, so how fun was that?
In terms of education, it had more impact on WGU staff than it did on how we delivered.
Yeah.
Because our program mentors, our course instructors, our service desk, our student success group, they were all already communicating with students via the phone, via conference calling, via Zoom or whatever, and so it didn't change any of that. We had a lot of students who were negatively impacted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it certainly disrupted their education,
Yeah.
but it didn't disrupt our delivery of education.
Okay. Were you already working remotely at the time?
No, that's where it affected some of the staff.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
about, I think at that time, about a third of the staff were, maybe a little more, were in office,
Yeah.
but we had 2/3 who were not, who were
Okay.
already remote.
Okay. So you were a
So
producer.
they
in that
just
sense.
stayed put, and then about a third of us had to start working from home, and obviously, that was disruptive for some of us, more disruptive for some of us than others, but the great thing is it didn't affect how we deliver, to the student.
I want to come back to that pet peeve of mine, which is like infrastructure and how different systems talk to one another. A few months ago, you connected OpenEdX to the system, or
well, we've been connecting OpenEdX to various systems ever since we started working with it.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So how does that work out in practice? OpenEdX is a big beast of a system. I mean, I'm guessing you are used to those complex systems. LMSs tend to be on the complex, on the extreme side of complexity of the spectrum. So how does that work in practical terms?
Sometimes better than others. When we first launched OpenEdX, we had like a year plan for implementing it, but then for a variety of reasons, we suddenly had about 3 months to get the first courses up and running on it.
So that was pandemic time?
Yes, it was during the pandemic.
Yeah, I got it.
And so not only did we have to train everybody on how to build within it, we also had to make decisions about what about these other systems? Do we try to integrate with them? And we chose not to at that time. It also meant, though, that our way of enrolling students into OpenEdX, we had to pick the fastest possible way, which it's a long story, but it wasn't the best student experience. But it's what allowed us to get up and running in 3 months instead of a year. And we then had to come back several months later and design the right enrollment process and build the right enrollment process, which involved 4 other systems to get the right kind of data available so that we could get the student enrolled in a way that we could get the data out and track it appropriately. So, that's the kind of thing we struggle with. Sometimes if we need to work fast, we don't get to do the integrations, or we don't get to do them the right way. And then we always have to come back and redo that. Now, the great thing about OpenEdX, it is a large system, but it was designed for these kinds of things. And so we've been able to do some things with XBlocks where we've integrated other systems, like our digital asset management system. We don't store any images in OpenEdX, which is what it was designed to do. Instead, we built a custom XBlock that talks to our digital asset system. It brings over the image, positions it where we want it positioned, brings over the alt text that we store with the image in the asset management system, brings over the caption, the attribution, the long description, places them all exactly how we want them on the screen. And that's a process that used to take up to 10 minutes per image.
Okay.
And you can imagine in a course, how many images do you use? I mean, an image a page, an image every 2 screens, whatever. Some courses had hundreds of images in them at 10 minutes an image. The XBlock dropped that to under 2.
Okay.
A huge cost savings, and not an easy, but not a super difficult integration with this other tool, and working right squarely within the mainstream architecture of OpenEdX, because those XBlocks are designed to let you customize that experience. So, that's the kind of thing that's been really helpful as we've tried to look at how to integrate some of our other systems, that it's designed that way.
So taking a step back from engineering, maybe the coolest thing about WGU is that whenever I hear someone from WGU, yourself included, talking, you don't talk much about business model, marketing, market share, but you keep talking about the students. And that's because your focus is a student, which again seems simple, but has lots of consequences down the road.
So for our 25th anniversary, at one of our graduation ceremonies, we actually brought the first graduate of Western Governors University to the ceremony, and she spoke.
How old was she?
She was probably in her mid to late 50s, I think.
Okay, cool.
But who gets to meet the first graduate of their university? You know, I mean, I graduated from 3 universities, and all of them were over 100 years old. And so, you know, so our students are so present to us, you know, because all of them, you know, I'm older than some people watching this, obviously, but all of them have been graduated within my lifetime. And one of our guiding principles is one by one, and we believe that you have to serve each student as an individual.
Even though you now have 500,000.
Even though we have 500,000 graduates, even though we have 200,000 students right at this moment, we're still trying to figure out. I'll tell you a story that I've told the WGU people before. We had a student who was having a problem with a third-party vendor's assessment system, and we license several other vendors' products to use for various things. And there was a team of 7 people who worked for 3 days so that she would graduate, finish her course, pass her assessment, and graduate before the end of her term.
Wow.
200,000 students, 199,999, whatever that is, out there doing their thing. 7 people focused on that one student. And, you know, that's just, it's incredible.
And you focus on students not just while they are following the courses.
Yeah.
And can you talk about that? So that blew my mind when you first told me about it.
So our competency-based model it hinges on our credibility in saying that, yes, a student who has graduated, we have validated their competency. Now, we have psychometricians who are reviewing and analyzing every assessment item that we use. And so, you know, we could probably just make that argument that, yeah, we feel really comfortable because we know exactly how this test works. But that's not quite enough. And so what we do instead, or in addition to all of that work to make sure the assessment is just as solid a validation as it can be, we also follow the students after they leave the university. We survey the students, the alumni, and we ask them about whether they feel like what they got out of their education has improved their ability to do their job, whether it has led them to get better jobs, whether it has led them to get better salaries, whether it has changed the lives of them and their families. We also interview their employers. We survey their employers to find out. It's kind of like an NPS score from the employer.
Yeah.
You know, would you hire another WGU graduate? And the response rate is very high. And for us, that's ultimately the validation, because we want to make sure that when we send a person out into the world and we say, this is a front-end developer, and they've demonstrated that they have the competencies that a front-end developer should have, that their employer goes, yep, they do. So that's really important to us, and we do that every year. It's a key indicator. It's reported to the entire university every year, our annual meeting, and our leadership and our board follow those statistics quite closely.
So you have built in all these positive feedback loops in the process. getting insights about the students while they are studying to improve the course material, to make sure that they remain on track and committed. Another feedback loop is when you follow the students after they have left the university. And most businesses would dream of having just one of those feedback loops. Yet you're not really a business. You're not for profit.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you are enabled to do that, to do some of that, because WGU is a not-for-profit?
Not only are we not for profit, but we are also not a government-owned institution.
Yeah.
So we were founded by governors, but we're not a state institution
not public
for
sector,
any of those. You know, we're not, and we're not for profit. So there are no shareholders or anything like that pressuring us to move in one direction or another. There's no government entity pressuring us to move in one way or another. It really, I think it's part of why we can focus on those students so closely, because that is ultimately the pressure that we have. Is we want to keep students enrolling. And how do you do that? Well, you have other students who feel like it's succeeding, and then they tell their friends, their siblings. We actually now, we're getting to the point now where we have parents and children who are graduating together even, because, you know, one of them starts on the program and says, in some cases it could be the child, you know, who starts on the program and is going on and on to their family about how great it is, how well it's working.
What kind of courses? What kind of program?
Any of them. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have had students whose parents have joined them and gotten a master's degree, for instance, while they're getting their bachelor's degree. We've had children who have seen their parents, children who decided they weren't going to school, who have seen their parents going and graduating.
Oh, okay.
And then they, you know, join WGU. And some of them, you know, they're joining while their parents are working on their degrees. We've had families where a parent has gotten a bachelor's degree and started a master's degree while their child has started a bachelor's degree. You know, it's the model is effective for people. And so they tell other people about it.
That NPS score, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the ultimate score, right? Would you tell your family and friends to go here? They do, and they tell them while they're going. You know, so it's a pretty effective model.
I want to ask how WGU is reinventing itself in times of AI. So if you're watching this from the far future, the year is 2025. AI hasn't peaked yet. The hype hasn't peaked. We're still in there.
It has not yet destroyed the world.
We're still figuring out, you know, what is it going to be. Everybody's scrambling. We don't know where it's going. As a 30-year-old institution, you've gone through multiple technical revolutions. How did you handle those? How are you handling this one?
So our founding and our model show that we've always been technology forward. We're not scared of technology. We weren't scared of it when the question was, can you even deliver a real education using the internet, which at that time was pretty new. And at that time, people thought the internet was going to maybe destroy the universe.
Yeah. I remember that vividly.
You know, but WGU wasn't afraid of that. We took advantage of it. I think it's the same way with AI. You know, I mean, obviously there are people, some of them in WGU who have some trepidation about using AI in education, whether students should use it, whether we should use it in creating courses, you know, I mean, all of those kinds of things. And we've chosen not to let that fear or those people's fears stop us. I mean, we're moving forward with AI. We're building AI-driven experiences into courses. We are setting up entire programs around AI. We've launched certificates in AI prompt engineering and other AI topics. We're working to embed AI in every program where it feels appropriate, to teach students how to use AI, to find ways to help people become more competent because they have AI, not less competent because they're using AI. And, I think that's what really drives us is we think technology is an enabler, and we think AI will be an enabler. And we just have to find the right ways to do it. And it's part of why we're at this conference, is because, we knew that would be one of the topics here, and we wanted to be part of that conversation. We're trying to figure out what are the right ways, what are the guardrails to put around it, what are the controls that we need to do, how do we need to teach students good and bad ways to use AI, so that they can distinguish for themselves. It's, we don't have a choice. I was actually, I will share with you something I was thinking about earlier today that just hit me. I realized for the last 4 months, I've been assessed by AI every day, all day at work.
How's that?
WGU provided every faculty member and every student Grammarly.
Okay.
Well, everybody thinks about Grammarly as a tool that helps you get your sentences right, get your punctuation right. It can help you reword a sentence. Every Monday, I receive an email from Grammarly, and it tells me how my error rate compared to my peers.
Yeah.
It tells me how many unique words I used compared to my peers.
Were you looking forward to that email, or?
I do now.
Okay.
I actually do now. And
I would be a little anxious about it.
No,
the first few times.
in fact, and then at the end of it, it tells me about the tone, the various tones I have used in the things I type. And the thing that I've been thinking about today, and it just hit me like it was an epiphany during one of the sessions, that's an assessment. I mean, it's looking at my performance and comparing it to other people. I'm assessed every day, and Grammarly, every time I cursor into a text editable field, Grammarly watches what I do. Every time. And my little green Grammarly icon shows up so that I know that it's doing that.
Yeah.
I never thought about it as an assessment. Even this email I got, I thought was just sort of a fun, that's an interesting look at how I write. Listening to some of the sessions today, I suddenly realized it's just an assessment, and I don't mind it. I mean, this AI is watching me every time I start typing, but it's also a very useful tool. I actually started, one time one of the tones said I was becoming it was number 3 on my list. I was defensive. I'm not defensive. and then I had to go, wait a minute. And so I had to start thinking, and for the next week, I was watching myself to see, am I being too defensive in what I'm writing? And by the next week, I got my next email, and it wasn't on my list. And I was like, nailed it.
Enabling self-reflection and improvement.
Yeah. I mean, AI didn't make me a worse writer. It made me a better writer.
So that thing about assessments that you mentioned, I also find it fascinating. I think it was Anant Agarwal who mentioned that in the panel today, that so we were talking about assessments, and I think also cheating, the difficulty of assessing students online. And he made a very, very good point when he said that we should be, thanks to AI, should enable real continuous assessment, just like what you're describing with Grammarly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that eventually we'll face issues with cheating there as well. But it's still, well, we can get the formative assessments there with the this continuous monitoring. And because we'll always talk about continuous assessments, but they are not really continuous. They are still like milestones.
Yeah. It was that conversation, I think, that got me thinking about the Grammarly thing, because I know that Grammarly is watching me all day long, every day, just waiting for me to click into an editable field. And it doesn't matter where, because I installed the plugin on my laptop. every editable field, it pops up. And it could be in a browser window, it could be in an application, it doesn't matter. And that's continuous assessment.
Would you like to have the same feature, but for audio as well?
Well, maybe not.
Yeah, that would be sketchy.
But I mean, why would we be afraid of that? Well, because we know we do some things verbally that we probably wish we didn't, or we probably would be embarrassed if it were evaluated all the time. And I mean, nobody wants a big brother, but in the context of an educational environment where I'm trying to get better, assessment is just part of the process. And if we can make it a more continuous part of the process, a lot of students don't demonstrate competencies that they really do have because of that periodic assessment approach. There's a lot of angst involved in it, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry about what if I don't do well. I mean, there are disabilities that prevent them from demonstrating their competency in an environment like that. There are personality, differences. A lot of that could be overcome if the assessments didn't feel so much like an assessment. You're just doing your work. You're working on this activity, and there's something in the background watching and going, yep, they got that. Yep, they got that. Yep, they got that. And eventually you've got enough of those that you go, hey, guess what?
It's more welcoming, more inclusive assessment environment. And
AI also allows it to say, they're almost there. Let's throw another opportunity at that. And so it throws in another cycle maybe of that particular task. And they do it again. And it goes, okay, yeah, they're there, but let's confirm it. So it throws in another one and goes, okay, yeah, they're definitely there.
Yeah. And so that means that we can move on to the next session of the course without completing like an official graded assessment as we're used to, but instead it's the AI model that says, okay, yeah, the student is good to go.
Yeah, the student never has to, in a model like that, the student never has to step outside of learning mode and say, okay, now I'm in assessment mode.
So is WGU looking at implementing such features?
I think everybody is looking at
I'm playing catch up. I'm scrambling.
I mean, you heard Anand Agarwal talk about that. I just think it actually is an idea that's been around. I mean, I started out as a junior high and high school teacher almost 40 years ago now. And it was an idea that was around then.
Okay.
I mean, we've always wanted to find ways to test students without making them so anxious about being tested.
But now we have the means to that hand.
We just never had the tools.
Yeah.
And now we do. It would be kind of criminal to not try to figure out how to do that.
Coming back to that audio monitoring idea kind of thing, I think I would be okay with that if I would be owning the software stack and the model, and not send the data all to a faraway model.
And it would be different too if you knew that the only thing it was being used for was to see when you finally demonstrated competency, right? So I'm taking a course on conflict resolution, and so the AI is watching as I talk to people in a team meeting. And when it sees instances of conflict, it's checking out what my behaviors are. And it's reporting back to me. I mean, that's the thing about the Grammarly model is, it's not reporting to my manager. It's reporting back to me and saying, hey, Mike, you're not there yet.
Yeah. For some improvement,
it's if this model is reporting back to me and maybe to my instructor or my mentor who are there to help support me, and they're able to say, not we're going to keep you from passing the course, but we're here to help you pass the course. Next time you're in a situation like that, maybe you should try this, or maybe go read this extra thing or try this extra activity, because with a little more work on that, we think you could get it. I think that's a model that people wouldn't be so scared of, you know. But you know, like I said, I think everybody's working toward that kind of model and has been for a long time, and maybe the technology really is there now.
So there are so many questions I want to ask, but I want to be conscious of time. So speaking of time, that's a big deal for me personally. I want to be able to make more time for learning. And I'm guessing that WGU, that's a big deal for WGU because you are targeting students who are not on campus, so they have to make space and time in their lives to study. How do you encourage people to carve a space and time for learning?
Well, I think that's one thing you do. You encourage them. You also try to develop the learning experiences in such a way that they can fit it in. You know, I mean, some people are able to devote a long period of time, you know, during the week to work on, you know, on something. Some people are only able to fit in small bits, and you need to be designing learning experiences that can work both ways. So it's a big part of what we talk about when it comes to things like that is what are these contexts for students, and what are we doing to help solve for those kinds of contexts? I'll tell you a personal story. My daughter is an accounting major at WGU.
Yeah.
And she's also someone who swore she would never go to college. And she decided it was going to be helpful for her. She has a full-time job. She has 2 kids, and she's doing a 4-year bachelor's degree.
Okay.
Good luck.
It is hard.
Right?
Yeah.
But she's able to arrange her schedule. She has one evening a week when someone takes care of her 2 kids.
Yeah.
And so that evening she spends, and then she has one day on the weekend where for about 4 or 5 hours someone takes care of her kids. And basically using those 2 time slots, she's able to complete a course a month, which is what her self-chosen pace is. And that's going to let her complete her degree in just about exactly 4 years. And, you know, that's how she's done it. And that's what every student at WGU gets to do. They get to choose for themselves what their pace will be and then schedule it. She was telling me the other day that she was working with her mentor to schedule out her next 6 months, because all of our students work in 6-month terms. And during that time, they can complete as many courses as they want to. So they planned 6 months at a time. She was working with her mentor, and she was looking at the courses, discussing how difficult they would be for her. And we have some tools that help a student understand that. And she was able to say, you know what, I'm going to take that one first so that I can take as long as I need to on it, because that's going to be the hardest course I have this term. Then I will figure out how to make sure I get the other ones done after that. When I went to college, I stood, and this is a long time ago, I stood in a line, and when I got up to the front of the line, I got to say, here are the courses I want to take. And they said, those 2 aren't available this semester. They're already full. Which other ones would you like to take? Well, I don't want to take that one because that one's going to be really hard. Well, it's only offered this quarter, you know, or this semester, whatever. I mean, that's the traditional model. The online model, they don't have to make that choice.
Well, the online respectful for the student model. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the WGU model also is that they don't have to make those kinds of choices. They get to look at what they're up against and figure out how to organize it in a way that works for them. And, you know, when you talk about our student focus, what's more student focused than that?
So organization, discipline on the side of the student, and on the side of the university, then supporting different paces, like student-led pace. So I want to ask you the magic wand question. And the magic wand question is, you have a magic wand and you can do whatever you want, you can change whatever you want. in the world of education in general today.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you use it for?
One of the things that I do worry about, WGU was started to help students who didn't have access to traditional education. There's still huge numbers of students, potential students here in the United States, who don't have access to online education. They don't have the broadband that it really requires. They don't have access to the computers that it requires. If I had a magic wand, I would fix that, because I think if you could extend the WGU model to all of those students,
so technology access.
it would, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would, but they don't have access even to the WGU model because they don't have access to the technology, the electricity, the internet access, all of it. And those are students who really need it more than anybody else. That's what I would change.
It's a clearly identified problem to which there might exist a solution. So I think that's hopeful. Thank you so much for this interview. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.